We've got one more week, folks. 7 more days until iOS 13 rains down from heaven above and fixes every problem you've ever imagined iOS having. 7 more days until the Apple Card finally becomes actually available. 7 more days until you hear old Tim Apple go, "Good morning." And I'm very much looking forward to all of it. But in today's video, we're talking about potential hardware that could be coming out. Or as I like to call some of these leaks, the wild cards. Wild cards, as I've referred to on podcasts and live streams in the past, but never really made a formal video about them, are basically the leaks and rumors that are definite maybes. They are split down the middle. I could easily see them not happening, and I could also see them easily happening. Like iOS 13 coming out at Worldwide Developers Conference, that is not a wild card. That's like a for sure, yeah, we get it. Even to a certain extent, the Apple standalone monitor or the modular Mac Pro that Apple confirmed they were working on several years ago, those more than likely could be unveiled at this event. Maybe they won't because production it needs to be delayed a little bit further, but we know those are coming at some point this year. Today's topics, though, these are going to be wild card rumors because there's a lot of evidence for them and a lot of evidence against them. So without further ado, let's begin. So wild card number 1 is that Apple at the Worldwide Developers Conference decides to refresh the iPod Touch line. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not what I want to happen. I think the iPod Touch absolutely is ready to die. It was made for a different era. It doesn't really fit into the world of smartphones anymore, and I feel like it makes the most amount of sense to just kill it entirely. But to be fair, to talk on the counter argument of what I don't like about the iPod Touch existing in 2019 is the fact that back when we got those iPad, iMac, AirPod refreshes before the March event, there were lots of analysts, there were lots of rumors going around that Apple was about to drop a refreshed iPod Touch. There is a chance in my mind that Apple saw all of the hype and decided to delay it further because they don't want to do what everyone's expecting. Apple wants to take those steps and kind of subvert people's expectations to the point that people aren't really sure what's going to happen. So there were a lot of rumors going around about a refreshed iPod Touch that we actually never got to see happen. But if there ends up being a refreshed iPod Touch, do not expect any features to be added to this thing. It would purely be a CPU upgrade that allows the iPod Touch to maybe run iOS 13. Similar to what they did with the iPad mini earlier this year. Update the CPU, that's about it, but at least it will last in the lineup for a bit longer. Maybe Apple's gonna have that mentality towards the iPod Touch for all the reasons a lot of you guys defend the iPod Touch, whether it be good for kids, being very small and light and portable, and being a good birthday gift for someone of a younger demographic and you don't want a data plan and stuff like that, to which I always suggest just find a refurbished iPhone or a used iPhone on the used market somewhere online because it'll probably be better than an iPod Touch hardware-wise and likely a lot cheaper. But I digress. A lot of you guys just refuse to do that kind of thing. You want to buy it brand new from the Apple Store, so it still shocks me to this day that Apple's still selling the iPod Touch. Maybe there's still a market around for it, and at Worldwide Developers Conference, they'll decide to up the CPU on the inside, say, there you go, it can get iOS updates for a few more years, and then they'll kill it. Hopefully. Come on, they gotta kill it eventually, right? Next wildcard rumor comes from a Twitter leaker online who has an incredibly good track record. He goes by the name of Coin, also known as CoinX. I have no idea the origin of that name, but if you go back at his tweets, he has a very reliable track record that I think proves he's someone on the inside who works at Apple. Maybe Tim Cook himself, and he just likes messing with us, though that's very unlikely. He tweeted exactly the naming of the iPhone lineup, which is very difficult to guess. He tweeted exact weight measurements of the iPhone XS Max. He tweeted the exact width of the upcoming iPad Pro. This guy is clearly someone on the inside because he tweets very rarely, but when he does, he usually ends up being almost 100% correct. And a while ago, he tweeted that a 10.5-inch iPad and a new iPad mini were coming soon, but they were working on a 10.2-inch iPad, and that was not going to be released at the same time as the mini and the new mid-range iPad, which turned out to be mostly true because he was correct. A 10.5-inch iPad Air was refreshed and no one really saw it coming. A lot of people were expecting the 10.2-inch iPad to be refreshed, but he surprised everyone and completely predicted the release of the mid-ranged iPad Air at $499. But to go back to that tweet, he did mention that the 10.2-inch budget iPad, the one that would be replacing the 2018 budget iPad, the one that starts at $330, the most popular one out there, this iPad would be coming later. And Worldwide Developers Conference conference is by definition later, so there is a small chance we'll be getting the 7th generation iPad at this event, and it will be replacing the 9.7-inch iPad for good, meaning that for now, at least, the entire iPad lineup will no longer have a 9.7-inch option, which is the OG iPad screen size. No other time in history have we had the entire iPad lineup without the 9.7-inch version. This would be a first, but yeah, it's probably going to look very similar to the iPad Air, just a slightly smaller footprint, and I have to wonder, it's gonna make the iPad lineup even more distorted than it already is. $500 iPad Air and then $330 iPad. What are the differences gonna be there? Maybe they give it non-laminated display, maybe they give it slower Touch ID, maybe they don't give it an A12 chip, they give it an A11 chip instead to save on money. Either way though, it's going to make the iPad lineup very, very intricate with all of its different configurations you'll be able to choose from. But regardless, there will be a cheaper iPad for people who don't want to spend a ton of money to use, so I'd be happy if that ended up coming out. I think it would be incredibly ambitious and very, very obtainable to lots of people. But again, that is a wild card, as we have not heard a lot of rumors about that iPad recently. All leaks and stuff like that all leaks for an upcoming iPad this year have kind of gone silent, though this coin guy has a very proven track record, so maybe he will be verified next week. And the next hardware refresh kind of wild card that could be coming out at Worldwide Developers Conference involves the iPhone SE, because I did see this one picture of a case manufacturer that claims their case is built for the iPhone SE 2. That got some people thinking, though I think it's probably just the company thinking, oh, there might be an iPhone SE refresh. Let's label it SE2 just so we're covered if that comes out, because it's the same footprint and shape of the iPhone 5, 5S, and whatever. But what if, just by chance, Apple has been reselling the iPhone SEs earlier this year, as we saw on their refurbished site? Very, very low price. You could buy these things for like $250 or less. Apple was still selling it, and a lot of articles were reporting on it. Maybe Apple saw that market demand and decided, you know what, we're gonna keep around the more affordable iPhone. So at Worldwide Developers Conference, they don't change the design of the SE at all. Literally, all they do is update the CPU on the inside to have an A10 chip instead of an A9 chip. That way, we could be for certain the iPhone SE is getting iOS 13, and Apple would just be refreshing the iPod, the SE, for the sake of, we want several 4-inch devices to still be capable of running iOS 13, so giving it the updated CPU would allow for that. And then this whole debate of whether or not the SE will get iOS 13 will kind of be silenced, because it'll be like, well, the old one, no, but the new one will. So Apple just wanted some extra processing power in order to run it. Though I will agree, out of all of the leaks I talked about today, the iPhone SE one is probably the least likely to happen. There's very little rumor suggesting that. If anything, there's rumor suggesting the iPhone SE is not making a comeback, but that's why we call these things wild cards. They're not to be expected, they're just meant to be toyed around with what hardware we could potentially be seeing at this event, if any at all. There is completely a chance that we will not see any hardware at this event. Standalone monitor, modular Mac Pro, all of it gone. Apple Card will come out, but technically it already was announced at the last event, so it's not like that's new hardware coming to this event. But personally, I'd be very interested if all three of these wild cards ended up happening. There's very little chance of that, but anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys think about what wild card ideas you have for the Worldwide Developers Conference happening in just 1 week. I'm very, very excited to watch it, and if you want to hype more about it, be sure to follow me over on Twitter or join our Discord, where I try to stay as active as possible. Also, if you're looking for new types of gaming content out there, we're kind of rebranding. We're kind of doing some new forms of content over on Talos of Gaming that have kind of 10-minute edited gameplay that's kind of dank. It has memes in it. It's kind of PewDiePie-esque, and maybe if you're looking for new channels to watch out there, feel free to check this one out, because we're putting some work into it, and we'd love it if you guys enjoyed it. Plus, it's free. You have nothing to lose here. I'm not asking for money. I'm just like, go watch this. If you laugh, then good. I know, I'm such a sellout. Anyway, this is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.